take it to the bank. He don't care what Brandon thinks at the White House.
Governor, just 1 second. This is not just any sword. This is called a rudis. It is what the gladiators were awarded with after they had fought a long, hard battle for freedom. And so this is a representation from all of our moms here in Florida and across the country that appreciate all you've done to stand up for parental rights and freedom. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It is yours.
Good morning. For those of you not from here, welcome to the freest state in the United States. Although there are some people out there trying to say true freedom is when you force kids to wear masks 8 hours a day, if you're not locking them out of school and restricting people in all different ways. I don't think that's a very appealing definition of freedom. And so we're really excited to be here. We're excited that the state of Florida has led the way on so many issues over these last 3 years. And yes, education has been a big one, but if you think about what was going on in this country, state after state, locking people down, denying people the ability to work, infringing freedoms, while they were doing that, we were lifting people up. We made sure people's rights were respected. Their jobs were protected. Small businesses were able to thrive, and of course, we made sure that every single kid in this state had the right to go to school in person 5 days a week. And that was much different at the time in terms of what was going on. But if you look at, okay, how did it work out in terms of what the state's doing? You know, we just finished our fiscal year June 30th for 21-22. And our budget in the state of Florida was $102 billion. Now, what does that mean? Is that good, bad, whatever? Well, to put it in perspective, New York State has 3 million fewer people than we do, and yet their budget is over twice the size of ours. Now, we have better services, I can tell you that, better infrastructure, I can tell you that, and higher performing K through 12 school system. And we do it all with no income tax and one of the lowest tax burdens in the country per capita. And so now that the fiscal year's end, we got the final tally, $102 billion budget, and our surplus was a record, almost $22 billion in the state of Florida. And if you look at tourism in 2021, we had the largest domestic tourism that the state of Florida has ever had. And that was with, you know, all these other restrictions, other places people could come here. First quarter of this year, of all the foreign tourism into the United States, 45% of that was to the state of Florida for international travel. So, I mean, would you want to go vacation somewhere if they made you show medical papers just to go out to dinner? I wouldn't. So we're proud to have been able to really save a lot of jobs, businesses, and give people an opportunity to succeed. But if you think about all the things that were done over the last couple years, there were, I think, a handful of really crucial decisions that people either made right or didn't. And I think one of the ones that's going to have the most lasting impact is if you were in a position of power, did you do everything you could to make sure kids had an education in person? Did you make sure schools were open? Did you do what needed to be done to make sure that we weren't leaving our kids behind? And I go back, I remember it was more than 2 years ago now, we were very insistent that in the state of Florida that we would have a full school year, and every parent in Florida had the right to send their kid to school 5 days a week. We knew that that was the right thing to do because we actually understood the data. You know, when you get into positions like this, you have a responsibility. What I told myself is, I have a responsibility to look at this data myself. I can't just subcontract out leadership. And so we were doing that, and when we set out for the schools, it was, from a medical and data perspective, was not a difficult decision. I mean, it was very blindingly obvious that this is what needed to be done. You know, now that you see this copy being produced and these things in the media saying like, oh my God, the devastating effect of school closures. Who could have predicted it would be this bad? Yeah, we predicted it would be bad. So that was, so from a data and science perspective, obviously, this was something that was really important. I mean, the kids were at very, very small risk of anything having to do with COVID. And honestly, keeping them out of school, they still do stuff. I mean, it was just so ridiculous that people thought that that was the thing you can do. And so we knew that. But I'll tell you, the hysteria, the partisan attacks, everything. I mean, I was attacked by the media relentlessly. I was attacked by the Democrats relentlessly. I was attacked by bureaucrats relentlessly. I was attacked by establishment Republicans, to be honest with you. Sad but true. And so we had to do that. But you know, at the end of the day, leadership is about being willing to stand up for what's right, even when you're taking fire. So, and honestly, you know, taking fire, what do I care about taking fire? I mean, honestly, I get criticized when I come out of bed every morning. It's like just part of the job. But, you know, what I told myself is, you know, my job is to protect the jobs of the people that I represent, the educational opportunities of our children. And if that somehow puts my job in jeopardy, if it doesn't work out for me politically, so be it. I don't care. I would rather do what's right and just let the chips fall where they may. So we were cutting against the grain. We were cutting against a lot of opposition. And then I remember when we had the kids, this is summer of 2020, you know, you had some like you know, these like ABC coming down, like they'd go to some rural school district, and they were basically saying, they wouldn't say it in these words, but they were basically saying, you know, these yokels are so stupid, they're gonna kill all the kids and everything like that. I mean, that's basically what they were trying to say. And so, you know, we did it, and I can tell you this, the parents, how happy they were to be able to have their kids getting an education. The kids, how happy they were to be able to do. And you know, I got sued by the teachers union. They wanted to close the schools, but I'll tell you, most of the teachers throughout this state wanted to go back to school too, and they deserve credit for that. So we were able to do that, and I think that that is something. So now people are looking at the learning loss and everything. So in Florida, over the last 2 years, there's been no increase, no widening of the achievement gap between rich, poor, black, white, because we had kids. And you know what? The California school closures and all these other places, you know, that hurts disadvantaged kids the most. They're the ones that were put, because the wealthy people and the bureaucrats, they just send their kids to tutoring or to private school. So those were the kids that really suffered a lot. So you saw no increase in achievement gap. And these other places, you're seeing, you know, massive problems as a result of that. You're going to have so many kids that just totally fall off the radar as a result of that. We had families that would move their kids here because they couldn't go to school in person in these other states, or because they couldn't play sports, or they were denied these basic opportunities which are so integral to people's life. So we'd stepped up and we did that, and the results now speak for themselves. In fact, you look, we just talked about, we put out last week some of the test scores that we have. You know, we're seeing our scores increase in the state of Florida and across all demographics. And so that's really what success is all about. And what we were able to do by just doing the right thing, even when it wasn't easy, was really save the childhood for so many kids throughout the state of Florida, and that's something that's going to make a difference for years and years and years into the future. And it wasn't just the K-12. Summer of 2020, I remember I guess we had a panel. I was actually talking to scientists who were right about all this stuff. I actually followed people that looked at the data. So I got guys from Stanford and Harvard and all this stuff, and basically I'm like, okay, what about our college kids? They were trying to isolate college kids, and they did do that in many parts of the country. You had some of these kids go into depressions. There have been an increase in suicide as a result of these stupid policies. But what I said was, do not, for Florida universities, don't police their social lives. Let them make decisions. Let them have fun. There will be positive tests, and then it'll go down. And there's not going to be very many, if any, people that even check into a hospital. That's exactly what happened. And so they were able to live. Now, they had to do a lot remote because some of the professors didn't want to teach in person in that first year, and we took care of that. But they at least were able to be on campus, and they were able to live normal lives. And so I've had some of these college kids, they probably graduated now, thanking me for that, to saving the experience. And so that makes a big difference, but that's just doing what's right and what's common sense. So we were happy to have done that. And then if you think about how Florida's led on making sure kids were in school, we were also, I think, the first, certainly big state, to discard the CDC guidance on healthy quarantining of kids. They basically would say, someone tests positive, and then anyone that was in the lunchroom, at that time or whatever, the parents would get a call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh yeah, Johnny is not allowed to go to school because of an exposure. Well, he looks good to me. Well, no, out for 2 weeks is what they were trying to do. So first of all, that is not evidence-based to do that. Second of all, that is hugely disruptive for families and for students and for everything that goes into that. And so I was able to bring on a Surgeon General from UCLA, Joe Ladapo. And I said, Joe, and this was one of the first things I said, why are they healthy quarantining? And he said, there's no reason to be healthy quarantining. And I was like, well, let's tell them to stop healthy quarantining. And we did. And so we basically did common sense. If someone's sick, fine, send home. There's nothing wrong with doing basic precautions, but to take a healthy student and to basically quarantine them for no reason was not something that was good. So we were able to do that, and that was so much better for families. It was so much better for the students. You would actually have situations where you would have with multiple siblings, one would be quarantined, one would not. It made no sense what was going on. And so we were able to do that. And that's the thing. You can't just defer to a bureaucracy. The bureaucracy in this country has gotten things wrong time and time and time again across so many different subject matters, not just COVID. We can go through the whole 9 yards of a basically failed agency after failed agency. And so you hate to see it, but when I have agencies like the CDC denying that people that recover from COVID have protection and have natural immunity, which is something that has happened with every respiratory virus, when they said no and they tried to say that an mRNA vaccine was better immunity than prior infection, what has every study since then told us? It says just the opposite of what the CDC said. So these are just things people notice. And it's the same thing with what they want to do with baby COVID vaccines with the FDA. This is actually causing huge problems within those organizations because, you do have people there who really believe in the mission and don't believe this should all be politics. But clearly, when you do these clinical trials that show no significant benefit to doing this, and then you do an emergency use authorization for a 6-month-old or people that are 1 year old, people look at that and parents say, you know, what's going on here? Who can I trust? Because they're not doing it. They're not playing it straight. They're not following the data. And I just, when we saw this, this was over a year ago, we were looking to see, you know, what would they try to do next? In Florida, spring of 2021, you know, we did legislatively no COVID vax mandates for school children in the state of Florida. And there will not be as long as I am governor, I can tell you that. You know, we've had families move across the country just because of that issue, because they wanted to make sure that their kids wouldn't be denied an education based on whether or not they took an mRNA vaccine for their minor kids. And here's the thing, most of these kids have already had COVID and have had immunity through that. And so very important that we were not allowing, you know, government to come in and force that on people. And that's really, I think parents have really been appreciative of doing that. So we were able to do that and really, I think, but they are absolutely not going to quit on this. I guarantee you there's going to be movements around in these other states, and they would love to be able to do it in Florida. So we've done the right thing, but I think it's going to be something that's going to continue to be an issue going forward. And so we're proud that we protected opportunity for people. We're proud that we protected freedom for people, and that's put us in a position to, you know, take it up a notch when it comes to education in the state of Florida. And I think we've done as good as we did on having kids in school and all those other things. What we've done may be better than any other state in the country, is we have drawn a very clear line in the sand that says our school system is for educating kids, not indoctrinating kids. And we've also drawn a clear line in the sand to say parents have a fundamental role in the education of their kids. They have an important role, a vital role, and we have made sure in the state of Florida to not just talk the talk with parents' rights, but to walk the walk with parents' rights. We were one of the first states in 2021 to do a Bill of Rights for parents, which is very, very important, and actually was the predicate for us to make sure these school districts couldn't force mask the kids for 8 hours a day, and we were able to win that battle. We also have enacted this year curriculum transparency legislation for parents. You have a right to know what curriculum is being used in your children's classrooms. And why someone would want to lock parents out of that, why they would not want parents to be involved in that is really beyond me. But that's just something basic about being a parent. And you know, if they're doing things that violate state standards or that are inappropriate, you have the ability to raise those issues. We actually get, we have the state standards, the education has to conform to it. We recently had these reviews that the Department of Education was doing in Florida, and these math books, they were doing woke math. And I'm just thinking to myself, like 2 + 2 = 4, right? It's not 2 + 2 = well, how do you feel about that? Is that an injustice? No, we got to teach the kids to get the right answer. I mean, that's just the end of the day. So we said, the Department of Education said, though, okay, these are woke books, send them back to the publishers, the media's like, oh my God, they're banning books, whatever. No, you can buy them if you want, but they're not consistent with state standards. We're going to make sure that our books are. And so, but you know what happened was those companies, because we're such a big state, they took the woke out and send us back normal math books. So it's important that the curriculum is good. And then what they're doing in some of these libraries, you'll have these like elementary school, middle school, and it's just explicit. It's just not appropriate. And so parents need to be able to know that and to be able to lodge objections. So we were really, really happy with that. We also drew a line in the sand and said, in the state of Florida, a parent should be able to send their kid to kindergarten without having woke gender ideology shoved down their throat. We're not going to have some first grader be told that, yeah, your parents named you Johnny, you were born a boy, but maybe you're really a girl. That is inappropriate to be doing in school, and we're not going to allow that to happen in Florida. Now, as that was moving its way through the legislative process, some in the media didn't like that. There were some in the business community, some companies you may have heard of that didn't like it. And here's the thing, like I remember when the legislative session is going on, things are flying everywhere. I mean, it's 60 days. There's this, there's that. The curriculum transparency bill, for example, was like, we did that and proposed it. We also did a bill I'll talk about in a minute called the Stop Woke Act, which was very important. The Parents' Rights in Education was going through, and I didn't necessarily know all the little ins and outs of it. And then the media, they start badgering me about this bill. And they're using these phrases, and they're echoing the left. And I'm like, well, okay, wait a minute. I know the drill here, okay? They are creating a narrative, and they're lying. So I just need to figure out what they're lying about, and then I need to go and fight back. And so, I got my staff to go say, okay, what's the deal with this? They're saying all this stuff, whatever. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, okay. They want to die on the hill of forcing sexuality and gender ideology in elementary school? You've got to be kidding me. There must be something more to this. But that's really what it was. They were something that there. And so, so I started fighting back publicly about it because, honestly, you needed to set the record straight. And if you believe, and it's your position, that these young kids should be sexualized in that manner, you're wrong, but you should have to stand by that publicly. You shouldn't be able to skirt the issue. You shouldn't be able to obfuscate. You should have to do that. You shouldn't be able to hide behind a slogan. You should have to do that, and you should have to stand by. But here's the thing, and one of the reasons they go to these corporations is because they know that they can't stand by that. They know parents in the state of Florida will reject that position. So they cannot run for office saying that they're going to do that because we have elderly population. A lot of the elderly, they don't know what the heck any of this is. They're like, this is crazy. So it's not popular. It's not something that people want. So I think they understand that. So what they figure to do is, if we can get a big corporation to do basically the heavy lifting, maybe we subcontract our leftism to Disney, and then they will come and pressure elected officials. And you know what? It was not a dumb strategy because there are Republican elected officials who cave to big corporations time and time again. And so that's why they did it. And so they do. And so, they get Disney involved in this. And I told them, I said, you're nuts to get involved in this. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, parents with kids, that's your ginning audience. Why would you be doing it? And I don't think they wanted to. I think that they realized that it was kind of a hazardous thing. But, you had a lot of people, ginning it up and everything. So they decided to come out against it, which honestly is fine. I mean, like, I'm not, people can take their positions, but a lot of people thought, once Disney came out against it, that somehow that was going to kill the bill because Disney's just too powerful, in the state of Florida. Well, they bet wrong on that one, I'll tell you that. And so, they're doing the narratives, and we've seen this in corporate America before. I mean, remember when Georgia did their voting law in 2021, you had all these big companies, virtue signaling, Delta, Coca-Cola, Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game. Oh, this is like an attack on democracy. That's what they were saying. They just did Georgia's primary under these new rules, and yet a massive increase in turnout. And so those corporations were following a narrative. They were not following the facts, and they were really helping to distort the truth rather than stand for the truth. So we've seen that before, and Disney was playing that playbook. So, as soon as they did that, I said, fine. But you know what? I've got to go out as a leader and make sure people understand that they do not run the state of Florida. We run the state of Florida. And we're not going to have our leadership subcontracted out to a corporation with close ties to the CCP that's based in Burbank, California. That's not going to happen on my watch. And so we made it very clear. Here we were. We weren't going to back down, and we knew that that was something that was very important. And so honestly, at that point, I thought it was kind of over. I really did. So then the legislature sends me the bill a week or two later, so we signed the bill. And yeah, I knew the left would have their spasm or whatever, the media, but I honestly didn't think the companies were going to say anything again. But Disney puts out this statement saying, it is our mission to repeal parents' rights and, all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the state of Florida. This is our process. This does not even concern you. For you to be getting involved in that, first of all, I don't think that's consistent with the fiduciary duty that you owe to your shareholders. And the shareholders have taken it in the wallet since all this happened. They've lost massive market cap. But I'm just thinking, like, okay, that's very aggressive. And again, it's a free country. You can do that. But wait a minute. Okay, that's escalating it against us, right? And then they had these videos that were leaked with these Disney people saying, it's their agenda to inject sexuality in programming for these very young kids. Look, I have a 5, a 4, and a 2-year-old. So maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive about this. But I think parents in this country should be able to have their kids go to school, watch cartoons, just be kids, without having an agenda shoved down their throat every minute. And so I was not happy to see that. I thought it was not something that a family-friendly company would do. I thought those values were not aligned with where the state of Florida is in terms of parents and children. But it is a free country. You can say these things, but they do not have a right to force us to subsidize their woke activism. And the fact of the matter is, they had gotten more subsidies from this state going back to the 1960s than any corporation in the history of the state of Florida. They have their own government. They're exempt from many laws, and they've gotten massive, massive tax breaks. And so my view was, okay, say what you want, but I am not going to have our state's laws put this one company on a pedestal and give them special treatment. Those days are over. And so and it's just 6 months ago, no one would have thought it would ever be possible to do. And so we went ahead and, we had the legislature in for the redistricting. We added this, and, we're now in a situation where Disney is not going to have its own government. They are going to live under the same laws as everybody else, and they are going to pay their fair share of taxes. So it's fine. And look, all I'm doing is trying to defend parents. I'm trying to stand for good education. I think the extent the state of Florida continues to succeed on keeping that line between indoctrination and education firm, our kids are going to benefit. Our schools are going to perform better. All these places in these other states where it's just all about the ideology, they're going to do worse. So this is really, really important for kids, and that's why we did it. But I also think just the reality is Americans are sick of some of these companies and their stupid activism. And they wanted somebody to stand up. They wanted somebody to stand up and say, no, we're not going to let you distort our political process here in the state of Florida. So I think it's had good reverberations around the country. I don't think you've seen these companies be as aggressive as on some of these issues. And here's the thing: it's an issue for self-government. It's one thing to advance things in the political arena, but when they can't get things done through the ballot box, to use corporate power to do it and to impose basically a leftist agenda through corporate America, you've got to be concerned about that, and you got to realize that that's something that we have to fight back against. And so that's what we did, and I think the state's better off for it. And I know that in terms of fairness and the rule of law is much better off for it for what we did. We also, and so that kind of got most of the headlines. But one of the bills that we did was very important, was really looking at things like critical race theory and other types of ideologies, not just in classrooms, but in corporate workplaces. And so we did a bill called the Stop Wrongs Against Our Kids and Employees Act, the Stop Woke Act. And what it says is, no imposition of things like critical race. And, the media will try to distort this. They'll say, oh, well, that's only taught in law school. We're not saying there's a course in 5th grade or 8th grade or whatever. Of course not. But the principles and the way you're thinking about stuff, if you take a 6-year-old kid and you say because you're one color, you're an oppressor, that is wrong. That is not how you treat people. If you teach, which CRT does, that values like achievement and merit and hard work are really codes for white supremacy, that is wrong, and that has no place in our schools. And so you never hear the left actually talk about what we're actually concerned with. They will do straw men to say they don't want people to learn about civil rights or abolitionism. Actually, in Florida, all that is required to be taught by statute, and it should be taught, and it will be taught accurately and fairly, but that's not really what, and actually there was one, someone did a mailer, a left-wing group, saying, Florida, they're trying to erase, all these historical figures. They had like Washington and all this stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, you're the one trying to take Washington down, not me. I would be fine. If they did nothing but study Washington's character and life, we could do a lot worse in this country. So you have that, and it's really important. And what they do is they'll try to distort history to advance an ideological agenda in the present day. So there was a thing that the New York Times did called the 1619 Project, and they say we're trying to reimagine American history, and they're basically trying to distort. But they came under fire even from left-wing historians, even from socialists were attacking them because they said the American Revolution was fought because of slavery. And that's just fundamentally a lie. You want to know why it was fought? Read the pamphlets that were done during that time. Look at the committees of correspondence. Look at what they did in independence. All that stuff is public record. It's been written about, all that stuff. So to try to act like Paul Revere and all these people were really concerned, it's just wrong. But what they're trying to do, they're trying to delegitimize the foundations of this country. They want people to believe that our institutions were founded, that they were rotten, and that these are not things that are really worth fighting for, and our founding principles, really aren't things that are worth fighting for. And it's interesting because they really are aligned historically, like we're aligned with Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass about the country's principles really being the guiding light that has led other people throughout win struggles across the board. Stephen Douglas, when he was debating Lincoln, he said, no, none of that's true. Declaration of Independence doesn't mean what it says. Country was basically founded, and he was doing the CRT, what they view America as. So it's very interesting how you do it. So, we believe in a Lincoln and Frederick Douglass version of the founding of the country in American history, but there is an agenda at play, and so we're just making sure that we're doing it right. Also, in these corporations, they want to subject these the employees to these things where they're being scapegoated based on their skin color. And that's just wrong to do. You should not have to be subjected to sitting through that. So we provided protections for that. Now, we're getting sued on it. We're in front of a liberal judge. He's going to rule against us, but we'll win eventually. We'll get it done, and we'll make sure we're on. But at the end of the day, we should not be spending tax dollars or using our energy to teach our kids to hate our country or to hate each other based on how they look. That's wrong. And as important as it is to say, okay, we don't want divisive ideology in the classroom, we don't want things like that, it's also important to say, well, what are you for? And so what we've done since I've been governor is we've launched the largest civics initiative anywhere in the country, because people need to know. Our kids need to have a good foundation to understand the principles that this country was founded upon. They need to understand why so many people have been willing to fight and die in defense of these American ideals. And they need to understand, what it means to be an American. And I think this has been a lost art over the last generation. I think there's probably a lot of factors to a lot of things going on in society, but I think we would be a little less divided if we all were singing off the same sheet of music about what it means to be an American and understood the principles in the same way. That has seemed to be something that's fallen out of favor. So what we said is, no, we have a responsibility here. No matter what these kids are doing, some will go immediately to work, some will go to state college, some will go to university, some will go business, some will go medicine. They'll do a whole bunch of things. The one common theme to all those, they will all be called upon to exercise the duties of being an American citizen. And if we're just graduating a bunch of listless vessels that don't really have a sense of what the country means, then we're not doing our duty to ensure that the best days of this country are in front of us, but we're also not doing justice to the people that have come before us, that have fought and sacrificed because they thought the country was something that was worth saving. So we have a responsibility to do it, and we've done it in a number of ways. We just started doing for seniors, having them take an exam just like the immigrants have to take when they become citizens of the United States. They need to know the basics. We've got really good standards through the Department of Education. We launched a Civics and Debate initiative a couple years ago, and we now have, I think this year it'll be 60 of the 67 school districts will be a part of the Civics and Debate initiative, and in Orlando, we're going to be hosting the National Civics and Debate this fall, and we're really the leader on civics and debate, which is important. And it's teaching kids, when you go through civics and debate, they will give you a topic, and then they will tell you which side you have to argue. So you may be arguing a side you personally don't necessarily agree with, but it causes you to think and think of issues from other perspectives, and it sharpens your ability to think logically, clearly, and to reason properly. Sometimes you go to these very left-wing universities, everyone repeats the same stuff. Those students don't get the type of critical thinking that they need because the assumptions are never challenged. And so we're challenging assumptions and making sure that we're doing that. And then what we also have done is said it's very important that the teachers have the tools they need to teach civics and history properly. So we launched, I mean, we're calling it a civics boot camp, but it's a training program, and the teachers go through it. They get a $3,000 bonus, but you're really looking at true history. You're looking at stuff from the perspective of the founding generation, how those principles inform the creation of the Constitution, and all these other things. You know, some of the media wasn't happy about it because it slams the door to using that history for leftist indoctrination, and that's, you know, the way it should be. So we're doing that, and I think it's going to make a big, big difference. And so no one has done more, and we're going to continue to do more. But, you know, part of the things I think that we've seen over the last couple years is, yes, you can have what we're doing at the state, and we've done good policy, we've done good budgets, we've done good things for teachers, we've done good things for workforce, we've done a lot of good stuff. But the state is not going to be able to do all this stuff on its own and get everything right. It's really the local communities that need to be leading the way when it comes to their school districts. So we have, I have this year made it an effort to help promising candidates for school board across the state of Florida. And if you look at the way this has gone over the last couple years, in Florida, in the Constitution, these are, you know, nonpartisan races, right? So the voters don't necessarily, there's not a label, doesn't, so you got, and you will have kind of left-wing interests will get behind a candidate. They'll kind of package them a certain way. They get in, and then all they do is bow to the union or do different the left-wing things. So this will be conservative counties, you know, will have left-of-center school boards. And how does that happen? And so, look, I get there's some places that are very left-of-center. They're going to elect people that maybe reflect that. Not that I agree with those decisions, but you understand. But what I can understand is how you could have a 65-35 Republican county and then have a school board that's fighting tooth and nail to mask kids against their will, fighting tooth and nail for some of the bad curriculum. How does that make any sense? So what we're looking to do is really help candidates who are walking the walk, who have strong values, who are going to be there for parents and put the students first, and just shine a little light on that, and just help, particularly some of our voters who come up to me and ask me these questions about who should do. So we've done, I don't know, we've done a lot of endorsements lately. I mean, I think we've done 20 or so, 25 maybe. Is there anyone here I've endorsed for school board? Where is she? Oh, Allie, yes. Hillsborough County. So she's running, let me tell you, that school board needs some work. And so if you're in Hillsborough, she's the one to be able to support to kind of help turn things around. And I can tell you, if we left it to that school board, those kids would have been locked out of school for a long time. So it's important. So we're doing that. And I think what's happened over the last couple of years is parents now realize that these are really significant elections. You know, the certain elections, you know, a midterm, you know, who's running for governor or senator, you know, those are important, don't get me wrong, but these probably have a significant impact on families' lives in a way that some of these other offices may not be able to do. So it's important to be involved in that. And I know this group has done it, and I'll just say kind of the situation we find ourselves in. I think one of the differences between what's going on in our country now versus maybe 10 years ago is, you know, the left fires on all cylinders across all these different institutions now in a way that they may not have done. You know, a woke corporation 10 years ago was not something people really would have even fathomed at the time. But you look at how they've been able to advance a woke ideology in corporate America with the media, with big tech serving as the censorship arm, so that, you know, if you say, hey, the FDA's trial on the baby vax wasn't good, they will potentially take you down from that. They don't want anybody who's going to shed light on any of the problems with these narratives. And so you have that. Obviously, the universities, have been more and more aggressive in terms of their partnership. Although in Florida, I just signed legislation, all tenured professors in Florida have a mandatory 5-year review and can be let go if they're not doing a good job. So. But you have that. You have bureaucrats that have become very politicized and have tried to weaponize the bureaucracy. Who would have thought that parents going to a school board meeting would have to fear FBI agents being dispatched like they were earlier this year or last year? So there's I think a lot of threats to freedom. There's a lot of people that will push back if you stand up and do the right thing. And so when you have a situation like that where they don't want to hear the truth and you speak the truth, man, you're going to take fire. They're going to shoot arrows at you. And it's not just people like me who's a target because I'm in an office. It's parents who go to a school board. You go to that school board meeting and you speak the truth. Is the media going to hail you as a hero? No, they're going to try to smear you. They're going to try to dig into your background and do something and lie about you. If you're running for some of these local offices, they're going to come after you. If you're working in a business potentially, they could try to. So there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of pushback against the truth right now. So what we need more than anything, one, we just need common sense, because a lot of this stuff is not rocket science. You need common sense, but what you need when you have a situation like this, you need some courage. You just got to be willing to stand by your convictions when it's not easy, when they come after you, and you know the drill. Honestly, I tell people, like when I have folks in that work for me, like our Surgeon General, I said, I didn't see what you did last week, but I saw you got attacked by NBC, so you must be doing a good job, so thank you. But it requires you be willing to stand your ground. It requires us to understand, now's not the time to be a shrinking violet. Now's not the time to let them grind you down. You've got to stand up and you've got to fight. But here's the thing. As much as this wokeism has gotten into all these institutions, and it is a mile wide in our society, it's only an inch deep. The people of this state, and I think the people around this country, they reject this nonsense. They know they're being lied to. And if you show them, whether you're just individually involved as a parent, whether you're running for office, whether you're involved in any other capacity, if you just show people that you're willing to fight for them, man, they will walk over broken glass barefoot to have your back. And so that's what we've seen in the state of Florida, because with everything that we've stood up against and all the incoming we've taken, every step of the way, we've had a reservoir of patriots throughout this state who were standing up, and they had my back, and they have all your backs. And so we have a great opportunity in this election in August with the primaries for the school board, and hopefully we win a lot then, and then into November with my election and all these other elections to really solidify the state of Florida as this country's citadel of freedom. You look around what's going on and you see Brandon blundering around in the White House, and the bad energy policy that you see every time, you go get to fill up the gas, and the grocery bills and all that. There's a lot to be pessimistic about, particularly in terms of Washington, D.C. But I can tell you this, in terms of Florida and the direction, I think back to the Constitutional Convention. During the convention, it was a tough convention. It almost failed multiple times. Finally, they come to an agreement, and as the delegates are signing the document, Benjamin Franklin stands up. He looks at the president's chair. George Washington was the president of the convention, not president of the United States yet. And Dr. Franklin said, and there was a kind of a sun, half of a sun on top of the chair. And Franklin said, you know, throughout this whole time, I've been trying to rack my brain about whether that sun on the president's chair is a rising sun or a setting sun. And he said, well, with what we've accomplished today, I have more faith than ever that that is a rising sun signifying the future for a great nation. I'll tell you this, in the state of Florida, in the Sunshine State, that sun is rising here because we're meeting the challenges. We're not backing down. We've accomplished an awful lot, but we are not letting up, and we are on a mission to keep Florida free. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Where do I go?